Hello and welcome back to the 5 Minute Film Club. I've had a longer than planned gap between videos, but I had to recover from doing all those James Bond videos last year. But just before Christmas, I released a video of all of my Blu-ray collection and just asking people to come forward and let me know which films from my collection you'd like to see me review. And a couple of people put in the comments that Seconds by John Frankenheimer was one that they wanted to see.
Hudson, in an astonishing change of pace, stars in Seconds.
Last year I wanted to get to know really John Frankenheimer's films. I'd reviewed The Train, really enjoyed that, loved his association with star Burt Lancaster, so it's really nice to be able to do a review of Seconds. But first, a little background maybe on John Frankenheimer. So he started in television, working alongside TV directors Sidney Lumet as an assistant director, and he really was working at the golden age of American television, which was the 1950s. And then he slowly starts to turn those television shows and episodes that he was doing into feature-length films. And one of the first that he did was with Burt Lancaster, The Young Savages. And this was all at the start of the 1960s. And then he gets associated with Burt Lancaster. They did The Birdman of Alcatraz together. And also at the same time, John Frankenheimer that year made The Manchurian Candidate as well. So two incredibly powerful films to come out of the early 1960s. And The Manchurian Candidate actually is the first part of a kind of thematic trilogy that John Frankenheimer would make in very quick succession. So starting off with The Manchurian Candidate, and then going into 7 Days in May, again with Burt Lancaster. And then finally rounding out that trilogy in 1966, we have Seconds, starring Rock Hudson. It starts off like a kind of Twilight Zone episode, and the trippy title sequences by Saul Bass could quite happily have had Rod Sterling's voiceover attached, as the film settles on Arthur Hamilton being pursued by an unknown man in Grand Central Station. And the astounding and otherworldly camera work by James Wan Howe in this opening only heightens our feeling of paranoia and confusion. Howe's cinematography and camera work in this film is what, for me, makes this film so rewatchable. Before the invention of the Steadicam, Wong Howe gets shots that feel years ahead of their time, and nothing is ever overused. Instead, the camera work just keeps evolving. And I think a lot of that comes from John Frankenheimer pushing Wong Howe, who, was quite happy to keep developing and honing his skills all the way through his life. And you've got a young person like John Frankenheimer just saying, well, let's just do it. Let's just get everything, including, the scene where Arthur Hamilton is picked up by his wife, and the fact that they don't use rear projection for the car journey, which was, the standard at the time. Instead, John Frankenheimer mounts the camera to the car because he knew he had a racing car film coming up next, which was Grand Prix, and so he wanted to try out how we would film those sequences for his next film during this one. But it just shows that both Frankenheimer and Wong Howe were working to the same level of detail and wanting to make this film as experimental as possible for the story it's telling. And I love how this film just throws you into that story. So the film of Seconds follows Arthur Hamilton suffering a midlife crisis. He is bored with his wife and his life, and when approached by a kind of shadowy organisation called the Corporation, they offer him a new life by way of an extreme makeover. And I mean an extreme makeover. This is a physical makeover.
Now don't do that. You can't talk because we've extracted all your teeth and given you a complete vocal cord resection.
I really like the depiction of the Corporation. The characters that we meet are on the surface quite comedic, a kind of absurdist comedy akin to Gilliam's Brazil. And definitely, I think this film is an inspiration for Jordan Peele's Get Out. We get a character that when he arrives and shows Arthur Hamilton that he's essentially blackmailed into taking on this offer. They drug him the second he arrives and then get him to assault a woman on a bed and film it. then show him, and he's like, well, if you don't do what we're giving you, this offer of a new life, we'll just show this to the world and you'll be completely ruined. And the head of the corporation is played by Grandpa Walton, Will Greer, and he is a typically homely southern gentleman, but beneath that lies a real darkness. And this character, this Will Greer character, just made me think of Stephen Root's blind art lover from Get Out. Now, I'd just like to get on to a little bit about the casting of Rock Hudson. This film is very different to anything else that Rock Hudson did, really. He did pillow talk with Doris Day. You know, he did romantic comedies. That's what he was. He was a pin-up, essentially. And by the 1960s, he wanted to flex his acting muscles. He'd been repressed by Hollywood a lot. He was a closeted gay man in Hollywood, a kind of an open secret to everybody in the profession, but he was manipulated from day one, joining the Hollywood machine. His manager gave him a new chin, a new set of teeth. He even had voice box manipulation, as you see actually happening in this film. So it's really interesting, the fact that Rock Hudson goes along and chooses this film particularly as his way of breaking out of the romantic comedy typecasting that he'd suffered. And there's so many parallels between Rock Hudson the man and Rock Hudson the Tony Wilson in this film. The fact that Rock Hudson wanted to break out like Arthur Hamilton and start out a new life, and yet with Seconds, the film that he chooses to do that, he does give us everything. Rock Hudson is phenomenal in this film. Originally, it was meant to be Laurence Olivier playing both parts in the film, but they didn't want that in the end, the studios, and so the kind of compromise was given that you start the film with one actor and then it would turn into Rock Hudson as the draw for the film. But Rock Hudson is phenomenal in this film. You can really see that he's working through absolutely everything. Every emotion that he's had to repress in both his private life, perhaps, and his on-screen persona just bursts forth. And now I will talk about the end of this film as well. So if you haven't seen the film, go and watch it. But Tony Wilson is set up in this new life as an artist in Malibu. And there's a fantastic party scene where John Frankenheimer actually got Rock Hudson drunk to do it. He was quite a repressed character, good boy, maybe, and so John Frankenheimer knew that he needed something more from him. So he said, Rock Hudson said, the only way I can really do this scene properly, acting drunk, is if I actually throw myself into it and get drunk. So he does, and it's a very funny and touching moment where Tony Wilson slowly discovers that the world that he's gone into is no better than the one that he's left. In fact, it seems worse. These people are fake, absolutely fake to him. He wants to get out the secret. He wants to get out the secret that he has a life, a previous life, and that all these people at the party are also seconds like him. They're reborn. And they say, no, you can't let this secret out. You can't spoil it for the rest of us. We're all feeling the same way, but, we just need to ride this one out.
Hey, John! Why are they... Hey, John! Hey, John, why are they staring at me like that?
They know.
They know what?
They're like you.
What do you mean?
Reborns.
Oh, Laura! Shut up, you! Shut up!
And so he decides, well, no, I want to do it again. So he goes back to the corporation to try and get a third attempt at life. And in that moment, he discovers that the people behind the corporation, unsurprisingly, they think he's failed. And so they strap him to a gurney, and essentially he becomes a cadaver for whoever is next to be reborn. He is the body that will be found with all his identifying marks taken away from him. He will just be a body in a burnt-out hotel or a car crash. Rock Hudson's realisation in the film, Tony Wilson's realisation that that's what's happening to him, he lets out everything in that final moment where the priest is taking him to be killed, essentially. Put down, it feels like a better word maybe. And Rock Hudson is on the gurney. he's strapped up, and John Frankenheimer in the commentary on the disc said that Rock Hudson just kept bursting out of the restraints. He was going for it so much that maybe that's what he felt Hollywood was like to him. Now, you can read so much into this that none of this is written down, but this is what I get from the film. That you get this sense that Seconds wasn't particularly successful, actually, when it came out, and it's taken its time to become a cult classic, and for people to realise how amazing Rock Hudson is in this film. And so maybe this film is about Rock Hudson trying to... Well, I mean, it's about Rock Hudson trying to escape Rock Hudson and ending up realising that all he is Rock Hudson, maybe. And Seconds as the film is like the end where you gave it your best shot, you've had your second attempt. Sorry, it hasn't worked for you. I really enjoyed Seconds, and I'm enjoying my exploration of John Frankenheimer's directing work. I think that he holds no punches. He feels like you can see why he was chosen to direct The French Connection 2. I think there's a similarity between Friedkin and John Frankenheimer. There's a harshness, but there's also tenderness. There's a juxtaposition with what they're doing on the screen, and it really does throw you as an audience member, and I love it. So I'm really looking forward to exploring everything that John Frankenheimer's done. So thank you very much for watching. Go back to that video if there's any other films that you want me to review. I will, of course, continue my John Frankenheimer, Burt Lancaster watch. But next week I'm going to pick up with my 501 must-see movies review and look at The Bicycle Thieves, which ironically was chosen in 1952 as the first Sight and Sound magazine's top film. And every 10 years, critics, directors get together and decide another Sight and Sound, best film poll. And Bicycle Thieves topped that back in 1952. And I'm really excited to talk about that next week. So please join me then. Thank you very much for watching. Comment down below your thoughts about Seconds. If you've read the novel, something I haven't, a very slim novel, but I haven't read it. If you have, and the differences, let me know between the novel and the film. And just let me know your thoughts about Seconds. And I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.